Alpha King Brenric Vale crushed Sorrel Dane's moon laundry stones because the new Luna, Lady Kalira Thorn, needed her sheets spotless before the third moon bell. The first stone broke under his hand with a sound too soft for what it ended. No one in the Lower Pack Washhouse moved. The laundresses stood with wet sleeves pressed to their ribs. The royal guards watched from the stair arch. House Matron Ilva Rusk held Sorrel's wash ledger against her chest, as if the ink inside had tried to bite her. Sorrel knelt beside the cracked basin, both hands still in gray water. The crushed stone dissolved between Brenric's fingers and fell into the wash like pale bone dust. "This house will not carry shame into a Luna ceremony," he said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The lower rooms of the royal house had been built to carry command downward through stone, steam, and servant breath. Sorrel lifted her eyes. Brenric Vale stood in black ceremonial leathers, with the silver wolf clasp of the alpha crown at his throat. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and severe, with dark gold skin, iron-black hair tied at the nape, and eyes the color of storm over a winter field. His royal wolf pressed behind those eyes tonight, restless and hidden badly. He had not come to the washhouse to understand. He had come to make the linens clean. Ilva Rusk stepped forward. She was silver-haired, straight-backed, and perfectly dry in a room where every honest person had water on them. "Majesty, Sorrel has used forbidden stones on the Luna bedding. She claims the stains return when washed under moonwater." She marked traces beside the wash tallies. Luna attendants dismissed before witness night. Wet nurses removed from scent rolls. Women whose bedding had been washed before their names were allowed to be mourned. A murmur passed through the laundresses. Sorrel looked at the ledger in Ilva's hands. Not at Ilva's face. At her hands. Dry. Always dry. Ilva's hands were always dry. That was how Sorrel had first learned who gave orders, and who was made to carry the water afterward. "You told me to remove stains," Sorrel said. Ilva's mouth tightened. "Not invent ghosts. I did not invent what the cloth returned." The stones did not reveal secrets. They returned what had been washed out. Blood, scent, oath oil, fever salt. The last trace a royal house tried to rinse from a woman before it erased her name. Brenric's gaze moved to the great hanging lines where the Luna sheets waited. White linen, moon-bleached, embroidered with the royal housemark. They should have smelled of rain and lye. Instead, they smelled faintly of buried roses. Upstairs, Lady Kalira's veil already waited beside the moonbell rope, wide enough for every allied Luna to judge before she ever saw the bride's face. His jaw shifted once. Sorrel saw it. So did Ilva. The matron moved quickly. "If she touches those linens again, the upper court will smell delay before the bell." That gave Brenric a reason to look away from the smell. Sorrel felt it happen. Not mercy lost, but pressure finding the easiest neck. "I asked for the old household service rolls to be opened," she said. "You asked to shame women better than you." "No." Sorrel stood slowly, water streaming from her sleeves. "I asked why 3 women vanished from the wash tallies before their oath linens were returned." A guard near the stair looked away. Ilva smiled. "Listen to her. A washhouse oath-bound servant believes the royal house owes her explanations." The words did what they were meant to do. They lowered the room. Sorrel felt the invisible hand pressing her back into soap, steam, cracked knuckles, winter water, all the work noble mouths wanted done but never named clean. They trusted her to carry blood from birthing cloths, fever sweat from royal pillows, wine from council robes, and scent from beds no one admitted had been shared. But when she said the stains meant something, her hands became dirty again. Brenric looked at the remaining moon laundry stones, arranged along the basin rim. 7 smooth, pale stones, each marked with a faint crescent worn almost flat. "Where did you get them?" he asked. "My mother left them with the wash oath." Ilva answered before Sorrel could continue. old servant charms, harmless until she used them on Luna linens. They are not charms, Sorrel said. They are oath wash stones. They do not keep records. They refuse false cleanliness. Ilva's eyes flashed. Enough. Brenric reached for the second stone. Sorrel stepped in front of the basin. The guards shifted. Brenric looked down at her. Move. No. The room seemed to forget its own steam. Ilva gave a soft, shocked breath, perfectly measured for witnesses. Majesty? Sorrel's heart struck hard, but she did not lower her head. If you crush them, you may get clean sheets. You will not get true ones. Brenric's expression hardened. For one moment, something else moved beneath it. Doubt, perhaps, or the royal wolf in him, refusing the scent rising from the linen. His eyes went again to the hanging sheets. One sheet trembled, though no wind entered the lower room. Ilva saw it and spoke fast. If she touches those linens again, the third moonbell passes. The allied Lunas may refuse witness. Lady Kalira enters the court unrecognized, and every border-mate oath tied to this ceremony can be challenged. For one breath, Brenric looked less like a king, certain of shame, than a man smelling something his court had ordered him not to name. Then duty closed over his face. Brenric took Sorrel by the wrist, moved her aside with controlled force, and closed his fist over the remaining stones. They cracked together. Sorrel made no sound. That was the only dignity left to her. Pale dust poured into the basin. The gray water turned white, then silver, then clear as moonlit ice. Ilva exhaled. Too soon. The first Luna sheet tore loose from the hanging line. It rose behind Sorrel like a ghost standing from water. Every laundress stepped back. One guard swore under his breath. Brenric released Sorrel's wrist, but the print of his fingers remained there, red against damp skin. The sheet stretched wide in the air. Clean linen should have shown nothing. This one began to write, not in ink, in wet silver threads blooming through the weave. Aloan Hart, upper house attendant, removed before she could witness the Luna inheritance sheets. Ilva's face emptied. Brenric went still. Sorrel looked from the glowing name to the matron's dry hands. Then she turned the Alpha King, whose crushed stone dust still clung to his palm. You wanted the sheets clean, Majesty, she said. Now ask what your house washed out of them. The moonbell rang above, and every white sheet in the washhouse began to rise. Not only the new Lunas, the wash ledger in Ilva Rusk's arms began to drip. Not water from the room, not steam gathered on leather. The drops seeped out from between the closed pages, dark at first, then pale, then silvered, with the faint smell of buried roses. Ilva looked down too late. The second Luna sheet rose before Aloan Hart's name finished bleeding through the first weave. This one did not write at once. It breathed. The linen swelled outward, as if someone had filled it from behind with the shape of a woman standing very still. A soft stain bloomed near the hem. Rose oil first, then a thread of old blood, then a smear of oath. Oil where a witness hand would have pressed cloth during ceremony copying. Sorrel did not move toward it. She had learned long ago that people believed a servant touched everything dirty on purpose. Tonight, she would not give Ilva a cleaner lie. Brenric's gaze shifted from the breathing sheet to Sorrel. What is it returning? Ilva snapped the ledger shut against her chest. Majesty, no. She has already contaminated the Luna bedding with forbidden washwater. Sorrel's wrist still burned where Brenric had held it. She kept that hand visible. If I had contaminated the sheets, they would smell like me. One guard near the stair lowered his eyes. Brenric did not. What would they smell like? He asked. Lye, iron, cold water, cracked skin. Sorrel looked at the sheet floating behind her. Not buried roses. Rose oil covers scent, Sorrel said. Only when a woman is being removed from witness cloth. At that, Ilva's fingers tightened around the ledger. There it was again. The fear. Not of names. Of scent. Brenric stepped nearer the basin, careful not to touch the water. His royal wolf pressed close enough to darken his pupils. You said the stones refuse false cleanliness. I did. Say the law before this room. Ilva moved sharply. She is not law-trained. No, Sorrel said. I am wash-oath trained. The laundresses behind her lifted their heads. That was not noble rank. It was lower than nearly every title in the house. But it was a vow. It had fed babies, carried sickness, hidden childbirth, washed death, and kept linen from becoming a grave without a name. Sorrel faced the hanging sheets. The oath. Wash does not reveal secrets. It returns what was forced out of cloth before witness was complete. Scent first. Blood if blood touched it. Oath oil if the cloth held ceremony. Then, only if a woman's name was scrubbed from service before her trace was mourned, the linen gives back the name. The second sheet snapped tight. Silver wetness streaked across it. Witness oil broken before inheritance copy. A murmur rolled through the washhouse. Brenric's voice turned colder. Bring down the upper house wash tallies. Ilva went still. Sorrel looked at him. Not gratitude. Not yet. He had crushed the stones. He had believed the dry hands over the wet ones. A command to bring down tallies did not restore what his fist had broken, but it moved the room. The oldest laundress, Nessa Gray, stepped from the shadow behind the rinse barrels. She was small, bent in the shoulders, with white hair tied under a plain cloth cap, and fingers swollen from too many winters in lie. Ilva's face hardened. Return to your tub. Nessa did not. Aloan Hart was upper house, Nessa said. She brought down the Luna inheritance sheets 9 years ago, before the old Luna died. Ilva's voice cut like wire. Old women remember badly. Cloth returns what people rinse away, Sorrel said. Nessa looked at the floating sheet. Elowen said one sheet came back with the wrong scent. Not the old Lunas. Not the bloodline girls. Roses. She was afraid to take it upstairs. Brenric turned. Bloodline girl? Ilva lifted her chin. Servant gossip. Nessa swallowed. Elowen vanished before witness night. Her bedding came down before dawn, already washed. Sorrel's stomach tightened. Bedding washed before a woman was allowed to be mourned. The stones had returned exactly what they were made to return. Brenric reached for Ilva's ledger. Ilva stepped back. It was the first time anyone had seen her retreat from royal hands. Majesty, she said. Smooth again. Consider what she is building. A dead attendant. A frightened old laundress. Forbidden stones ground into the new Luna's water. If Lady Kalira is delayed, every allied Luna upstairs will hear that your bride entered under servant stain. Brenric stopped. He hated the pause as soon as he made it. That was all Ilva needed. One pause. One king remembering the border-made oaths. One man calculating the cost of a ceremony turning foul in front of witnesses. Sorrel saw the old path opening again, so she blocked it. I will not wash the Luna linens. The room went cold. Brenric's eyes cut to her. You refuse your oath? No, I keep it. She pointed to the rising sheets. Until Elowen Hart's family is brought forward, until the upper house wash tallies are opened, and until the cloth is allowed to finish returning what was forced out, I will not make Lady Kalira's sheets clean enough to lie. Ilva smiled. There. Sabotage. No, Sorrel said. Witness delay. Brenric's jaw tightened. He looked as if he wanted to command both truth and time to obey him. He could do neither. Not cleanly. The second moon bell rang above. Far overhead, women's voices stirred in the upper court. Allied Lunas waiting, watching, measuring a house by the cloth it dared to raise. Ilva opened the ledger with a sharp motion. Very well. Let the room see her madness. A page showed clean columns, service names, wash tallies. No Aloan Hart. Ilva held it high. Then the second Luna sheet moved. It did not fly at Sorrel. It wrapped Ilva's dry hands. The matron gasped. Not from pain, from wetness. Water ran down her wrists for the first time anyone in the lower rooms had ever seen. It slipped over her fingers, over the ledger's clean page, and into the blank line between two service names. Silver letters rose where the water touched. Eloan Hart, removed by house order after refusing rose-scented inheritance cloth. Brenric stared at the line. Ilva's face went white as linen. Sorrel looked up toward the ceiling, where Lady Kalira's veil waited beside the moonbell rope. Now, she said quietly, ask who ordered her washed out. The sheet tightened around Ilva's hands, and from upstairs, the buried rose scent began to fall like rain. Above the washhouse, the allied Lunas smelled roses before the third moonbell rang. Their voices changed first. Sorrel heard the shift through the stone ceiling. Silk moving, chairs scraping, older women asking questions no servant below could afford to answer wrongly. The upper court had been waiting for white linens and a spotless bride. Instead, the scent of buried roses slipped upward through floor cracks, warm as perfume and wrong as blood in snow. Brenric looked toward the ceiling. Ilva did too. For the first time, the house matron looked less afraid of Sorrel than of the women waiting above. Take this room under seal, Ilva said quickly. No one leaves. No linen rises. No servant speaks until I have contained the contamination. Sorrel stepped toward the sheet wrapped around Ilva's wet hands. You do not get to call returned stains contamination. Ilva's eyes flashed. You do not command this house. No, Brenric said. The words struck the room flat. Sorrel turned. Brenric's face had hardened into royal distance again. His wolf still watched from behind his eyes. But the king stood before it now, calculating bells, witnesses, treaties, and the white veil upstairs. Ilva's shoulders eased. Then Brenric finished. I do. The relief left Ilva's face. He pointed to the guards. House Matron Ilva Rusk will be brought to the upper court with the wet ledger in her hands. Ilva went still. Majesty, that would parade servant filth before allied Lunas. It is already in the air. A sharp silence followed. Sorrel did not mistake the command for trust. Brenric was not defending her. He was containing a crisis. But for once, the crisis was not being contained by burying the woman at the bottom of the stairs. The sheet loosened from Ilva's hands only enough for her to walk. Water kept dripping from her fingers onto the ledger. Sorrel moved toward the basin. Brenric stopped her with a glance. You come as well. Ilva smiled thinly. Perfect. Let every Luna see the servant who delayed Lady Kalira's recognition. Sorrel met Brenric's eyes. Am I witness or accusation? The question caught him, not because he did not know the difference, because he had treated her as the second while needing the first. His jaw flexed. You will explain the rose oil law. Ilva spoke before Sorrel could. There is no rose oil law. There are washhouse habits, servant charms, old women's fears. Rose oil covers witness scent, Sorrel said. Only when lie is not enough. The old laundress Nessa Gray crossed herself with 2 wet fingers. Brenric noticed. You know this. Nessa's voice shook. All wash oath girls know it, Majesty. We are told never to ask why a sheet smells of roses after witness night, only to wash until the water runs sweet. Sweet, Sorrel said, means something was buried hard. The sheet around Ilva's hands tightened again. Ilva drew in a breath through her teeth but kept her voice calm. And now she will turn every fragrance in the royal house into murder. Every bride uses oil. Every Luna owns roses. This is how servants ruin noble women by pretending perfume is blood. A door opened above. The sound traveled down the stairwell. Heavy wood, iron hinges, a court going quiet. A woman's voice descended, older and trained by command. Bring the linen up. Brenric's expression changed slightly. Lady Morwen. Ilva's face drained. Sorrel had never seen Lady Morwen of the Ashridge Lunas, but she knew the name. Every washhouse knew the women who could accept or refuse witness at royal ceremonies. A young Luna might be impressed by white cloth. An old one knew where to look for the stain. Brenric moved toward the stair. Before anyone could follow, the upper court cried out. Something white slid down through the stairwell. Not falling, descending. Lady Kalira's veil drifted into the Lower Pack Washhouse, long and moon-white, embroidered with the royal house crest. It did not touch the steps. It did not brush the damp floor. It floated over Sorrel's basin and hung in the steam like a pale face with no body. Ilva whispered, "No." The veil began to drip rose water. One drop, then another. Each drop struck the basin where Brenric had crushed the moon laundry stones. The clear water darkened to the color of old blush, then separated into rings. Lye, white, blood, red, oil, gold, and a final pale rose that refused to mix with anything. Sorrel stared. This was not Elwyn Hart's trace. Elwyn had been upper house. She had witnessed. She had been removed after refusing a rose-scented inheritance cloth, but this veil held the rose scent itself. The source. Lady Morwen's voice came from above, closer now. That scent is not servant oil. Ilva shut her eyes for half a breath. Sorrel saw it. Brenric did too. Lady Morwen appeared at the stair arch, silver-haired and wrapped in dark blue ceremonial furs, 2 allied Lunas behind her. No one in the washhouse bowed quickly enough for her. She did not look at Brenric first. She looked at the veil dripping over the basin. "That is bloodline masking oil," she said. "Used only when a Luna claimant's scent must be hidden from witness cloth." The washhouse went silent. Brenric's voice was low. "Kalira?" For the first time, the name of his new Luna sounded less like a bride and more like a question. Lady Morwen's mouth tightened. "Not unless the girl was removed before her own ceremony." Ilva found her voice. "This is exactly why the linens must be raised now, before gossip breeds treason." Sorrel stepped beneath the hanging veil. Rose water struck her cheek, cold as grief. "No," she said. "The cloth is not accusing Lady Kalira yet. It is returning someone washed out before her." The veil shuddered. A line of wet silver formed near its lower edge, but no name came. Only a mark, a broken crescent beside a woman's scent claim. Lady Morwen inhaled sharply. Brenric turned to her. "Whose mark is that?" She did not answer. Ilva's wet hands clenched around the ledger. Sorrel looked from the broken crescent to the rosewater gathering in the basin. "If the scent is not Eloan's," she said, "then which woman was washed from the Luna inheritance before Lady Kalira ever touched these sheets?" The third moonbell began above them, and the veil turned red at the hem. The red did not spread like blood. It climbed like a name trying to return. From the hem of Lady Kalira's veil, the color drew itself upward in thin, wet threads, crossing the royal embroidery without soaking it, without staining the crest, as if the cloth knew exactly where guilt had passed and where innocence had only been placed over it. Sorrel stood beneath the hanging veil and did not touch it. That mattered. She felt every eye in the Lower Pack Washhouse waiting for her to reach up, to give Ilva one clean accusation. Servant hands, forbidden water, damaged ceremony. Instead, Sorrel kept both hands at her sides, while rosewater struck the basin in slow, bright drops. Lady Morwen descended the final stair. The 2 allied Lunas behind her remained above the last step, as if the washhouse floor itself had become a witness circle. No one ordered them closer. No one dared. "Hold the veil where it hangs," Lady Morwen said. A guard lifted a pole with shaking hands, but the veil drifted out of reach. Sorrel said, "It will not let dry wood touch it." Ilva gave a sharp laugh. "Listen. Now the servant speaks for cloth." "No," Lady Morwen said. "The cloth is speaking badly enough on its own." That silenced the room more thoroughly than Brenric's command. Brenric stood near the basin, stone dust still clinging to his palm from the stones he had crushed. He looked at the red climbing the veil, then at Lady Morwen. You recognized the broken crescent. I recognized the danger of it. That is not an answer. No, Sorrel said quietly. It is fear wearing manners. Lady Morwen looked at her then. Truly looked. Not as a laundress. Not kindly either. Like an old Luna measuring whether a lower room woman had earned the right to make the upper court uncomfortable. Ilva moved before Morwen could speak. The sheet around her wet hands pulled against her, but she lifted the ledger high enough for the room to see its dripping edges. Majesty, if that mark is read before third moon bell completes, Lady Kalira's recognition can be suspended. The allied Lunas will refuse witness. Border mate oaths will remain unsettled. Every rival house waiting for weakness will call your court unclean. Sorrel heard the trap. Ilva was not denying the mark. She was making the cost of naming it heavier than the lie. Brenric heard it too. His jaw locked, and for one breath, Sorrel saw the same man who had crushed the stones. King first, wolf second. Truth somewhere beneath ceremony. Then his eyes lowered to the red print, still around Sorrel's wrist, where he had moved her aside. He hated seeing it. Good. A wound noticed too late was not repair, but it could become the beginning of one. Lady Morwen, Brenric said. Read the mark. Ilva's face sharpened. Majesty, before the third bell ends. A tremor passed through the upper stair, where the allied Lunas waited. Lady Morwen stepped closer to the veil. This is not a name. It is a scent claim mark. A broken crescent belongs to a woman whose Luna inheritance was interrupted before witness sealing. Interrupted, Ilva said quickly. Not erased. Sorrel looked at the basin. If she had only been interrupted, the veil would not be bleeding rosewater. The red threads climbed higher. Not toward Lady Kalira's crest, toward the underside seam. Sorrel's breath caught. Every ceremony veil had a lower seam where the previous Luna's blessing thread was folded into the next bride's cloth. If something had been hidden there, it had touched the bride's inheritance before anyone in the upper court ever saw her face. She stepped closer. Brenric's hand moved as if to stop her. Sorrel looked at him. He stopped himself. The restraint cost him. She saw it. His wolf wanted to pull her away from the dripping veil, from Ilva's trap, from the old law that might burn a servant for touching royal cloth. But he had already learned what his hand could ruin when it chose protection without listening. What do you see? He asked. Not the front, Sorrel said. The hem. Ilva's wet hands clenched inside the sheet. She cannot inspect a Luna veil. Lady Morwen's eyes narrowed. A wash oath servant may inspect damaged cloth before witness refusal. Ilva turned on her. You would let a lower room girl handle Luna inheritance? I would let the woman who stopped the cloth from lying. Tell me where it hurts. Sorrel did not thank her. Gratitude would slow her hands. She took one of the uncrushed stone fragments from the basin rim, no larger than a broken tooth, and held it beneath the hem without touching the veil. Moonwater rose from the basin in a thin, clear thread, meeting the red at the seam. The cloth opened. Not tore. Opened. Inside the folded hem lay a line of pale stitching, hidden under newer thread. It smelled of roses so strongly that 2 guards stepped back. Nessa Gray began to weep. Sorrel turned. You know this stitch. The old laundress covered her mouth with wet fingers. A removal seam. Ilva said. Liar. Nessa shook her head. We used it when a cloth had to keep shape after a name was taken out. Brenric's voice dropped. A name was taken from Kalira's veil? No, Sorrel said. Before Kalira's veil became hers. Lady Morwen's face had gone very still. The third moon bell continued above them, slower now, each note a door closing. Sorrel lifted the broken crescent fragment toward the hidden seam. If the cloth returns what was washed out, then the rose belongs to the woman removed from this hem. The veil shuddered. A shape formed in the red water gathered at the bottom edge. Not letters yet. Only a shadow of a handprint, narrow and female, pressed where a claimant would have held the cloth during witness sealing. Brenric stared at it, as if the hand had reached through years and touched his throat. Ilva whispered, "Stop." There was no performance in it, only fear. Sorrel looked at her. "Why?" The sheet around Ilva's hands tightened until water spilled from the ledger onto the floor. Lady Morwen spoke before Ilva could lie. "Because if that handprint names a prior bloodline claimant, Lady Kalira's ceremony is not merely delayed." Brenric turned. "What is it?" "Built over another woman's removal." The final note of the third moon bell began to fall. Ilva's wet ledger opened by itself. A rose-colored line appeared across a page that had been scraped nearly white. Sorrel stepped toward it. "Ilva lunget." Brenric caught Ilva's shoulder before she reached the ledger, and this time he did not look away from Sorrel. "Read it," he said. Sorrel looked down at the half-returned line. No name yet, only an order. "Wash the broken crescent before the bride is brought down." The veil dripped red into the basin. Sorrel lifted her eyes to Ilva. "Whose crescent did you wash out?" The rose water climbed the ledger page instead of running down. It moved against gravity in thin red veins, crossing clean columns Ilva had kept spotless for years. The old wash tallies blurred beneath it. Names slid aside. Dates buckled. A scraped place near the center of the page opened, like skin under a blade. Sorrel stood over the ledger but did not touch it. That had become the only way to survive truth in a house trained to blame her hands. Ilva strained against Brenric's grip, but he held her shoulder with one hand and the wet ledger's edge with the other. Not gently, not cruelly. Like a man finally understanding that control without attention had already cost too much. Lady Morwen stepped closer. "Let the page finish." Ilva's voice sharpened. "If that mark names a Luna claimant before witness, the ceremony cannot proceed. You know what that means. I know what hiding it means." Morwen said. The red veins gathered into a broken crescent. Then a name formed beneath it. Ilva Thorn. First bloodline claimant. Removed from Luna inheritance cloth before sent witness. The washhouse seemed to drop several inches into the earth. Brenric looked at the name, then at the veil dripping over Sorrel's basin. "Thorn." Ilva caught the opening. "A family correction, Majesty. Bloodline shift. Claims are withdrawn. Young women fail suitability. That is not murder. That is house governance." Sorrel looked up. "Then why wash her out?" Ilva smiled at her, pale and cold. "Because not every rejected girl deserves to haunt a bride." The words were meant for the room, but they struck something lower in Sorrel. Rejected girl. Washed girl. Removed girl. A noble woman could vanish from inheritance cloth. A servant woman could vanish from memory for saying she had seen it. Different stations. Same water. Lady Morwen's mouth tightened. Ilva Thorn was not recorded as rejected. She was recorded as transferred, Ilva said. "To where?" Brenric asked. The matron's answer came too quickly. "Outer kin." The ledger reacted. A clear drop fell from Ilva's wrapped hands onto the word transferred. The ink split. Transferred to lower service custody. Bedding washed before witness night. Scent sealed under rose oil. Nessa Gray made a broken sound. Sorrel turned to her. "You knew?" The old laundress shook her head, tears slipping into the creases beside her mouth. "Not the name. Only the cloth. I was young. They brought down a bridal sheet before dawn. Said a fevered cousin had soiled it. It smelled sweet enough to choke on." Ilva snapped. "Enough servant memory." "No," Sorrel said. "Not memory. Return." The veil shuddered above the basin. Brenric looked at her. "What does this make you?" The question was not soft. It was dangerous. A king asking whether the woman he had humiliated had standing enough to stop his ceremony. Sorrel lifted her chin. Wash oath hands do not outrank Lunas. They do not command courts. They do not choose brides. She looked at the red hem. But when a ceremony cloth returns removal water, the wash oath hand that received it may halt the linen until the erased woman is named before witness. Ilva laughed once. Convenient. Lady Morwen did not. Her eyes stayed on Sorrel. She is correct. A tremor went through the guards. Brenric turned to Morwen. That is pack law? Older than pack law, Morwen said. House law. Written for the rooms men do not enter but still depend on. For the first time that night, the Lower Pack Washhouse did not feel lower. The steam rose around Sorrel like breath returning to lungs that had been pressed too long under stone. Ilva felt the shift and struck fast. Then she is disqualified. Brenric's eyes narrowed. Ilva lifted her wet hands, still bound by the sheet. Look at her. Stone dust in her water, forbidden fragments in her basin, blood from her wrist. She received the cloth after contaminating it. A stained hand cannot halt royal linen. The guards looked toward Sorrel's red-marked wrist. Brenric looked too. Sorrel did not hide it. That bruise is yours, she said. The words moved through the room more quietly than accusation, and landed harder. Brenric's face changed, and something in him pulled back from command as if it had burned him. He looked at the mark his hand had left on her skin, then at the crushed stone dust still clinging to his palm. Ilva saw the damage and tried to cover it. Majesty, this is not about a grip. It is about ceremony law. It is, Brenric said. He released Ilva's shoulder. For one breath, Sorrel thought he had chosen the easier path again. Then he held up his own hand. Pale stone dust caught in the lines of his palm. If contamination disqualifies the wash, then my hand did it first. Ilva went still. Brenric turned to the room. I crushed the stones. I touched her wrist. I ordered cleanliness before I heard the wash oath. If blame is needed to halt the linen, put my seal on it. Sorrel felt the words strike somewhere she had not armored well enough. Not forgiveness, but public weight. Lady Morwen inclined her head. Then the halt stands under royal admission. The veil stopped dripping. The red hem darkened into a single line. Naeva Thorn. Removed alive. A whisper passed through the washhouse. Alive. Brenric's head lifted sharply. Where? The ledger page trembled. Ilva's bound hands began to shake. Sorrel stepped closer, reading the water before it could retreat. Transferred below house name. Assigned to no wage. Washed under silence. Until the line broke, not faded, pulled. Somewhere above them, a woman screamed. Not Lady Morwen. Not an old Luna. Younger. Terrified. Brenric turned toward the stair. Lady Morwen's face had gone ashen. That was Kalira, she said. The moon bell rope snapped overhead, and Lady Kalira's white bridal shoes appeared on the top step, soaked red to the ankle. The red water reached the lowest stair before Lady Kalira did. It slid over the stone in a thin, shining ribbon, then stopped at the washhouse threshold, as if the lower room had become a line no lie could cross without permission. Lady Kalira Thorne stood halfway down the staircase, one hand gripping the rail, her white ceremonial gown gathered in shaking fingers. She was younger than Sorrel expected. Pale, perfectly dressed above the hem, terrified below it. Rose-red water soaked both bridal shoes and climbed the embroidered edges like something rising from beneath her. Brenric took one step toward her. Kalira flinched. The movement struck him harder than accusation. Everyone saw it. The Alpha King stopped with his hand half lifted and his face closed around a pain he did not yet have the right to show. Ilva moved first. She twisted her sheet-bound hands upward. Majesty, look what the servant has done. Her broken stones have reached the bride. The ceremony is contaminated. Remove Sorrel Dane before the allied Lunas name this an attack on Luna recognition. Kalira's lips parted. I did not. Ilva turned her head just enough. The girl went silent. Sorrel saw that silence. It had the shape of a hand over a mouth. Lady Morwen descended another step. Lady Kalira, whose water is on your shoes? Kalira looked down, tears filling her eyes. I do not know. Ilva's voice softened into poison. The poor child was dressing above. She touched nothing. This began only after Sorrel ground forbidden stones into Luna washwater. I did not grind them, Sorrel said. He did. The room looked at Brenric's hand. Stone dust still clung there. Ilva's eyes flashed, but she shifted at once. Then the damage is royal, not lawful. Only the Alpha King may cleanse it now. Order the washhouse emptied. I will prepare emergency purification before the final witness closes. Sorrel understood. If Ilva could move the cloth away from the room, away from the stones, away from the laundresses and the old Lunas, the water would be boiled, scented, blessed, and lied over before anyone read what it had returned. Brenric looked from Kalira to Sorrel. He wanted to protect the bride. He wanted to protect the court. He wanted, perhaps for the first time, to protect the truth. Those wants did not fit inside one command. Sorrel stepped toward the threshold, stopping before the red water. Lady Kalira, lift your hem. Ilva hissed. You will not inspect the bride. I am not inspecting her. I am inspecting cloth. Kalira's fingers tightened around the gown. Brenric's voice was low. Do it. The girl looked at him, and the hurt in her face was not guilt. It was betrayal mixed with fear. Still, she lifted the hem. The bridal shoes were white silk, stitched with tiny crescent vines. The red water was not coming from Kalira's skin. Her ankles were uncut. It seeped from inside the shoes. Nessa Gray whispered, Lining cloth. Sorrel nodded. Old cloth, Ilva snapped. All bridal shoes carry blessing remnants. This proves nothing. The shoes answered. One seam split open. A strip of linen slid out, red and rose slick, no longer than Sorrel's palm. It hung from the torn shoe like a tongue that had been waiting years to speak. Kalira stared at it and began to tremble harder. I never saw that. Sorrel believed her. Ilva did not like that she believed her. Brenric reached for the strip. Sorrel said, Do not. His hand stopped. That mattered too. Why? He asked. Because if royal blood touches a removal strip before Wash Oath reads it, Ilva will call it claimed by the house. Lady Morwen's eyes narrowed. She is correct. Ilva's expression did not move. How convenient that the servant knows every obscure lower room excuse. Sorrel held out her wet hand, palm upward. Because obscure lower room excuses are what upper rooms use when they need us silent. No one answered that. The strip swung once. A scent rose from it, heavy and sweet, roses over fever salt. Sorrel turned to Kalira. Did Ilva dress you? Kalira looked at the matron. Ilva said, Careful. The word was small. It was also a threat. Brenric heard it. His wolf pushed forward, darkening the air around him. Answer. Without looking at her, Kalira swallowed. Yes, she chose the shoes. She said old blessing cloth had been sewn inside to strengthen my witness. Ilva lifted her chin. Traditional. Sorrel looked at the torn seam. No, blessing cloth is sewn under the left arch. This was hidden under the heel. Nessa's voice shook. Heel cloth is for suppression, to keep a scent below the step. Ilva turned on her. Old woman. Brenric's growl cut through the washhouse. The sheet around Ilva's hands tightened until water poured from the ledger in streams. Sorrel took the broken stone fragment from the basin and held it beneath the dangling strip. Moonwater rose. The strip darkened. Not with a name. With a command. Keep the broken crescent beneath the bride until recognition completes. Kalira made a small sound and covered her mouth. Brenric's face went cold. Who wrote that? Ilva answered before the cloth could. No one. It is wash distortion. Sorrel looked at the line again. Not written. Soaked. Lady Morwen's head lifted. A spoken order pressed into wet cloth. The room stilled. Brenric turned slowly toward Ilva. Whose voice? Ilva smiled then. It was the first honest, ugly thing she had shown all night. If you chase every wet whisper before the bell closes, she said, Lady Kalira leaves this stair unrecognized. The border mate, oaths fail. Your enemies call your house barren of lawful Luna. Choose, Majesty. A dead woman's shoe lining, or the living bride in front of you. Kalira began to cry silently. Sorrel looked at her and felt the trap sharpen. Ilva was using the girl as shield, knife, and witness all at once. Then the dangling strip twisted toward Sorrel. The red water gathered at its edge. A voice came from the cloth, thin and cracked by years beneath rose oil. Not Kalira's, not Ilva's. A woman whispering through water. Do not let them put my name under hers. The washhouse froze. The strip fell into Sorrel's open palm, and the skin beneath it bloomed with a broken crescent. Kalira's scream died before it reached the upper court. She caught it in both hands, as if terror were another cloth she had been trained not to drop. Above her, the allied Lunas leaned over the stair rail. Below her, the Lower Pack Washhouse watched Sorrel Dane stand with the red strip in her palm and a broken crescent shining through her skin. Not painted, not written, received. Ilva Rusk looked at Sorrel's hand, and for the first time all night, she smiled as if the room had finally given her a clean blade. There, Ilva said. False claimant. The words struck faster than any guard. Sorrel closed her fingers around the strip, but the crescent did not vanish. It glowed through her wet skin, pale red at the edges, as if the mark had been waiting for a living hand to carry it. Brenric stepped toward her. Lady Morwen stopped him with one sharp word. Do not. He turned on her. She is hurt. She is marked. The difference landed cold. Ilva lifted her bound hands, still wrapped by the wet sheet. Under Luna ceremony law, any woman below blood rank who receives a claimant mark during recognition is removed until fraud inquiry. Kalira shook her head. She did not take it. It fell. Silence, child. Ilva snapped. Brenric's wolf rose so suddenly the washhouse lamps guttered. Kalira flinched again. He saw it. The anger in him recoiled, not gone but leashed. He lowered his voice, and the effort cost him. Lady Kalira speaks. Kalira swallowed. The strip chose her hand. I saw it. Ilva's smile thinned. A frightened bride sees what contamination teaches her to see. Sorrel looked at the mark on her palm. It pulsed once with the scent of buried roses. Beneath it, her own skin felt wrong, borrowed, not wounded but named without consent. Now she understood the cruelty of the trap. If she held the strip, she became suspect. If she dropped it, the voice was lost. If Brenric protected her too fiercely, Ilva would say the Alpha King had chosen a washhouse servant over the recognized bride before allied witnesses. Every path had been soaped smooth toward her fall. Lady Morwen descended one more step. The law is ugly, but real. The wash oath hand must be removed from ceremony cloth until the mark is identified. Nessa Gray covered her mouth. But if she leaves, the cloth will be boiled. Ilva's wet hands tightened around the ledger. Emergency purification is required. We cannot let false claimant water spread through Lady Kalira's recognition. Sorrel looked at Brenric. There was the old choice again, dressed differently. House dignity or lower room truth. Living bride or erased woman, speed or stain. His face had gone hard, but not empty. That was almost worse. A cruel man would be easy to hate. Brenric looked like a man fully awake inside the mistake, and still surrounded by laws built to repeat it. What happens if I refuse to remove her? He asked. Lady Morwen did not soften the answer. The allied Lunas suspend witness. Lady Kalira remains unrecognized. Border mate. Oaths tied to her elevation can be challenged before moonset. Your rivals will call your house oath broken. Ilva whispered. For a laundress. Sorrel's hand closed tighter around the strip. The crescent burned. Brenric turned toward Ilva so slowly, the guard stepped back. "Say that again." Ilva did not. Sorrel spoke first. "Do not make this a rescue." Brenric looked at her. "If you keep me here by command, she wins," Sorrel said. "I become your defiance, not the cloth's witness." His jaw worked once. "You ask me to let them take you. I ask you to read before you seal." The words hit him. She saw him remember the basin, his hand crushing the stones, her wrist in his grip. The first clean lie he had chosen, because ceremony had asked nicely. He turned to Lady Morwen. Can the inquiry remove her body but preserve her received trace? Ilva's eyes sharpened. Morwen studied Sorrel's palm. "Only if the marked witness gives the strip willingly into neutral wash." Ilva laughed. "There is no neutral wash here. Her stones corrupted every basin." Nessa raised one trembling hand. "There is rainwater in the old rinse trough, untouched since moonrise." Ilva's face went flat. Sorrel saw it. So did Brenric. "Bring it," he said. Two laundresses dragged the narrow trough from behind stacked barrels. Its water was dark and still, reflecting no face clearly. No stone dust, no lye, no rose oil. Sorrel stepped to it before any guard could touch her. The crescent on her palm throbbed as she opened her fingers. The red strip clung for a breath, reluctant as skin. Then it slipped into the rainwater. Nothing happened. Ilva exhaled. Too soon again. The water turned pale. Not red, not silver. White as cloth before a body touched it. A woman's voice rose from the trough, clearer this time. "Do not let Ilva put my name under Kalira's." The washhouse froze. Kalira began to cry openly now. "Whose voice is that?" No name came. Only the broken crescent glowing at the bottom of the trough. Then ceremony law answered from the stairwell. The upper bell rope twisted by itself, blackening from fiber to fiber. Lady Morwen's face tightened. "The inquiry has begun." Ilva moved instantly. "Remove Sorrel, Dane." This time Brenric did not stop the guards. Sorrel had told him not to. Even so, his hands curled into fists as two guards approached her. They did not drag her. Perhaps they feared the mark. Perhaps they feared the way Brenric watched them. Sorrel walked between them with her head high, her wet sleeves clinging to her arms. Her marked palm held open so no one could say she hid it. At the stair threshold, she looked back. The washhouse had changed. Kalira stood trembling in red-soaked shoes. Ilva held the wet ledger. Lady Morwen guarded the rain trough. Brenric stood in the center of it all. A king with no clean command left. The guards led Sorrel into the side passage used for rejected linens. Behind her, the door closed. The sound was soft. Final. Then the old drain beneath Sorrel's bare feet began to run backward. The rejected linen passage smelled sweeter than the washhouse. That was how Sorrel knew it had been used for more than cloth. No honest laundry room smelled sweet after moonrise. It smelled of lye, cold stone, tired hands, and water that had carried too much from too many bodies. This narrow passage smelled of roses layered over damp linen, roses over rust, roses over old fear sealed behind the walls. The two guards stopped at the iron rack, where damaged ceremonial cloths were hung before burning. "Wait here," one said. Sorrel looked at the rack. Torn sheets, failed mourning veils, birthing cloths too stained for public blessing. Anything a royal house could not display and did not want witnessed. "No," she said. The guard frowned. "You are removed from ceremony handling." "I am not handling ceremony cloth." She lifted her marked palm. The broken crescent glowed under her skin, faint but steady. Beneath her bare feet, water gathered between the stones and flowed backward along the passage, away from the washhouse door, toward a low arch nearly hidden behind stacked linen barrels. The second guard gripped his spear. "Do not move." Sorrel moved. Not quickly. Not like escape. like a woman following water through the only path left to truth. The guards followed, uncertain enough to be slow. At the low arch, the backward stream slipped under a sealed threshold. No handle, no visible lock. Only a small crescent notch carved near the floor, clogged with old wax and rose-colored soap. Sorrel knelt. Her burned wrist throbbed. Her marked palm pulsed. The red strip was no longer in her hand, but its voice still seemed to cling beneath her skin. "Do not let Ilva put my name under Kalira's." Sorrel pressed her palm to the crescent notch. The wax softened. Rose oil bled out. The hidden door opened inward. The guards swore. Beyond it lay a room no servant had mentioned, and no ledger would have confessed. A narrow rinse chamber, older than the washhouse above it, with stone troughs running along the walls. Every trough was dry except one. In that one, a strip of white cloth floated in clear water. Not red, not silver, clear. Sorrel stepped inside. The air changed around her. The sweetness thinned. Under it came another scent. Fever salt, old milk, and a woman's skin hidden too long from moonlight. On the far wall, scratched into stone by something dull, were tally marks, not days. Wash cycles. Sorrel counted 12 before her throat tightened. A woman had been kept beneath house name long enough to be washed again and again, until even her scent obeyed. One guard whispered, "By the moon." The other backed toward the passage. "We should call the king." "No," Sorrel said. Both men froze. She looked at the floating cloth. "If Brenric comes first, Ilva will say royal presence claimed the chamber. If Lady Morwen comes first, Ilva will call it Luna politics. I found it through Washoth. I read it first. You are under inquiry." "I know." Sorrel reached into the old trough. The water was not cold. That frightened her more than ice would have. The floating cloth slid into her fingers. It was a sleeve strip, torn from a fine underdress, washed so many times that the weave had become thin as breath. At first it showed nothing. Then Sorrel exhaled over it. A stain rose. Not blood. Milk. A nursing stain. The guards saw it and looked away, embarrassed because men always looked away from the proof that women had bodies until those bodies became useful to inheritance. Sorrel did not look away. Beneath the milk stain, rose oil broke apart. The broken crescent appeared. Then a name. Ilva Thorn. Under it, another line returned slowly. Luna claimant. Scent suppressed after inheritance objection. Kept below house name until witness replacement completed. Sorrel closed her eyes once. Alive. Removed. Washed, not buried. The distinction made the cruelty worse. A noise came from the passage behind her. Hurried steps, wet cloth dragging. A woman breathing too fast. Ilva appeared in the arch. Alone. No Brenric. No Morwen. No Kalira. Her hair had come loose around her face. Her hands were still wet, but the sheet no longer bound them. She had torn herself free and left water dripping behind her like a trail she did not know how to hide. Sorrel held up the sleeve strip. Ilva's face hardened into something almost peaceful. "You should have stayed with soap and silence. You kept her here. I kept a house from collapsing. You washed a living woman out of her own name." Ilva stepped into the chamber. Ilva Thorn was unstable. She would have broken every border mate. Oath with one selfish claim. Kalira was obedient. A house survives on obedient women. Sorrel felt the old room listen. The water in the trough rippled. "You switched the inheritance cloth," Sorrel said. Ilva smiled. "I preserved it." "No. You put Ilva's claim under Kalira's ceremony, because Kalira could carry it without asking questions." A sound came from the sleeve strip. Not words. A breath. Sorrel looked down. The cloth tightened around her fingers, and the name Ilva Thorn brightened until the guards backed away. Ilva saw the light and lunged. Sorrel dropped the cloth into the trough. Ilva's hand struck the water. the chamber answered. Every dry trough along the walls filled at once. Water, pillow linen, small cloths no noble eye had ever meant to see again. Ilva staggered back. Sorrel stood in the center of rising water, marked palm open. I did not bring the washhouse here, she said. You built it under us. The hidden strips rose around her like pale witnesses. From beyond the passage, Brenric's voice thundered her name. Ilva turned toward the door. Sorrel looked at the first strip floating at eye level. It carried one final returned line. Ilva Thorn transferred alive to Silence Chamber, and beneath it, in rose dark thread, House Matron Ilva Rusk, by private Luna order. The hidden chamber door slammed shut between Sorrel and the king. Brenric struck the stone wall hard enough to split his knuckles. The sound rolled through the rejected linen passage, but the hidden chamber did not open. Inside, Sorrel heard him through water and rock. A king reduced for one breath to a man on the wrong side of a truth he had helped bury by trusting the wrong hands. Do not break it, Lady Morwen ordered from the passage. If royal force opens a silence chamber, Ilva will claim everything inside was altered by command. Brenric's answer came low, savage, controlled. Then tell me how to reach her. Inside the chamber, Ilva smiled. She knows the law better than you, she said. That is the problem with old Lunas. They teach men restraint while women like you drown. Water rose around Sorrel's knees. The hidden strips floated in circles, hundreds of pale pieces turning slowly in the clear wash. Sleeves, hems, pillow corners, naming cloth, witness squares. Each one smelled of roses first, then something truer beneath it. Sorrel held Ilva Thorn's sleeve strip against her chest. You said private Luna order, Sorrel said. Whose? Ilva lifted her wet hands. The dead old Luna's. Who will contradict her? Elowyn Hart? Ilva Thorn? You? The chamber water rippled at Ilva's name. Sorrel felt the mark in her palm tighten. She was alive. When you put her here, alive is not the same as useful. The words were quiet. They were also confession. Sorrel looked toward the sealed wall. Brenric could not hear everything. Morwen could not see the strips. Kalira waited above with red-soaked shoes and a stolen inheritance beneath her heel. If Sorrel shouted, Ilva would drown the sound in law. If she waited for rescue, the chamber would become another place where women vanished correctly. So she stopped waiting. Sorrel lowered Ilva's sleeve strip into the water and pressed her marked palm over it. The broken crescent burned. All around the chamber, the floating strips turned inward. Ilva's smile faded. What are you doing? Rinsing. You have no basin. Sorrel looked at the rising water. You built one. The strips began to spin faster. Not violently. Not like a storm, like laundry in practiced hands. Water folded through cloth. Rose oil broke apart into pale rings. Under it came milk stains, fever, salt, birth blood, oath oil, and once, the faint soot of a candle snuffed before witness night. The sealed wall shuddered. Outside, Nessa Gray cried. The drains are answering. Sorrel pressed harder. Pain shot through her wrist. The broken crescent opened in her palm like a red eye. Wash oath return, she said. Not memory, not record. Return what was rinsed away before morning. The first strip lifted from the water. It slapped against the sealed wall from inside. Then another, and another. Pale cloth stuck to the stone, arranging themselves into a rough white panel. Wet letters bloomed across them, not written by hand but returned through stain. Ilva Thorn. First bloodline claimant. Removed alive beneath house name. The words bled through the wall. Outside, the passage went silent. Ilva lunged for Sorrel. Sorrel stepped back into deeper water, but Ilva caught her sleeve. You stupid girl. Do you think they will thank you? If Ilva lives, Kalira's recognition collapses. Brenric loses the mate oaths. Border houses turn, and when the wolves come for blame, They will not eat a house matron first. Sorrel twisted free. Then let them see who fed them lies. Ilva's face hardened. She reached into her bodice and drew out a small black vial. The scent hit Sorrel before the stopper came free. Boiled lye. Funeral salt. Rose oil sharpened into poison. Ilva raised it over the water. Emergency purification. One drop, and every returned trace becomes ceremonial waste. Brenric's voice thundered outside. Ilva! So he had seen the shadow through the wall. Ilva laughed. Too late, Majesty. Sorrel did not reach for the vial. She reached for Ilva's wristcloth. The sheet that had wrapped Ilva's hands earlier had left one strip clinging beneath her cuff, wet and forgotten. Sorrel seized it and pulled. Ilva screamed, not from pain, from exposure. The strip came free, and with it, a wash stain darker than all the others. Ink, oath, oil, and the dry powder used to copy seals without witnesses. Sorrel plunged Ilva's cuff strip into the chamber water before the vial could fall. The wall of cloth turned black, then silver. A new line returned. Private Luna order prepared by House Matron Ilva Rusk, using old Luna seal after death vigil. Outside, Lady Morwen's voice cut through the passage. After death vigil, Ilva froze. Sorrel looked at her. The old Luna did not order Nieva removed. The wall answered before Ilva could. Order copied after the old Luna's final breath. Witness, Elowen Hart. Suppressed before inheritance sheets were raised. Kalira's sob came from beyond the passage, thin and devastated. She had come down after all. Ilva's vial slipped lower. Sorrel saw the decision before it happened. Ilva would destroy herself, the strips, the chamber, and every name if it gave her one more clean page. Sorrel moved first. She struck the vial upward with her burned wrist. It shattered against the chamber ceiling. Black purification scattered over the stones. For one terrifying breath, nothing happened. Then the hidden cloths drank it. Every strip turned dark. Sorrel's heart stopped. Ilva smiled through tears. Clean, the water beneath them answered. No, Sorrel whispered. Darkness peeled from the strips and gathered, not into ash, but into one long sheet, larger than any linen in the royal house. It rose from the chamber water, stitched from every hidden cloth Ilva had tried to erase. Names returned across it. Elowen Hart, Nieva Thorne, 3 wet nurses, 2 Luna, attendant, a girl marked only as scent roll witness, women upon women, not dead enough to be buried, not living enough to be named. The sealed wall opened from the inside. Brenric stood there with blood on his knuckles. Lady Morwen behind him. Kalira barefoot in red water, staring at the great returned sheet with her hands over her mouth. Ilva staggered back. Sorrel stood in the chamber, soaked to the waist, holding Naeva's sleeve strip in her marked hand. Then the great sheet turned toward the stair. One final line appeared at its center. Nieva Thorne was transferred alive below the royal house. Brenric's voice was barely human. Where? The sheet lifted one wet corner and pointed down, toward the oldest drain beneath the chamber. From below the stone, a woman knocked once. Lady Kalira stepped into the hidden chamber before any guard could stop her. Red water soaked the hem of her bridal gown. Her veil was gone from her head. Her hair had loosened down her back, and without the perfect white frame prepared for the upper court, she looked less like a Luna chosen for witness, and more like a young woman who had been dressed in another woman's silence. Ilva turned on her. Go back upstairs. Galera did not. The great returned sheet hovered between them, heavy with names. Its lower edge pointed toward the oldest drain in the chamber floor, where the stone cover trembled once, then stilled. Brenric knelt beside it. Sorrel's voice stopped him before his hands touched stone. Not royal force. His fingers curled. For one breath, all the violence in him showed. Not against Sorrel, against the wall, the drain, the years below his house, his own blindness, but he pulled his hands back. "Then tell me how," he said. Sorrel looked at the strips floating around her. "Living cloth opens to living witness." Kalira swallowed. "Then let me witness." Ilva laughed, sharp and broken. You? You are the bride." "No," Kalira said, and her voice shook, but did not disappear. "I am the woman they dressed over her." The chamber went still. Sorrel held out Nyeva Thorn's sleeve strip. Kalira took it with both hands. The moment her fingers touched the cloth, rosewater ran clear over the broken crescent in Sorrel's palm. Kalira knelt beside the drain. "I do not claim what was put under me," she whispered. "If Nyeva Thorn lives, let her name rise before mine." The stone cover opened. No thunder, no blood. Only a long sigh of trapped air, sweet with old roses and sickness. A narrow stair descended into darkness. Brenric went first this time, but not as king. He removed the silver wolf clasp from his throat and set it on the wet floor before he stepped down. No royal claim enters before witness. Lady Morwen's eyes softened by the smallest measure. At last, Sorrel followed with a great returned sheet lighting the stair behind them. They found Nyeva Thorn seated in a low stone room beneath the chamber, wrapped in linen so thin it had become almost transparent. She was alive, but life had been made small in her. Gray at the lips, wrists narrow as reeds, hair cut unevenly, eyes open and too steady. Around her were shelves of washed cloth, each folded without a name. When she saw Kalira, she did not hate her. That mercy wounded the room more deeply than rage. Kalira fell to her knees. "I did not know." Nyeva's voice came out like water over stone. "That is how they kept you clean." Ilva made a sound behind them. Not remorse. Calculation collapsing. Brenric turned to her. "You kept a bloodline claimant beneath my house." "I protected your house," Ilva said. Nyeva would have challenged the inheritance. Kalira was pliable. The allied Lunas wanted peace. Your borders needed mate oaths. I did what rulers are too sentimental to do, and servants are too small to understand. Sorrel stepped between Ilva and Nyeva. "You washed women until they stopped being inconvenient." Ilva's eyes went cold. And the house stood. Lady Morwen descended into the lower room, followed by the allied Lunas. Their ceremonial hems touched wet stone, and none of them moved away. "Not after this," Morwen said. The great returned sheet spread itself across the wall behind Nyeva. Every name brightened. Elowen Hart, Nyeva Thorn, the wet nurses, the attendants, the scent roll witness. All the women Ilva had reduced to laundry, absence, and rose oil. Brenric faced the gathered witnesses. His voice carried upward through the hidden chamber, into the washhouse, into the stairwell, and into the upper court, where the third moon bell had gone silent. "By my failure, this house prized clean cloth over true witness. By my command, Sorrel Dane's stones were crushed before her oath was heard. By my trust, Ilva Rusk held authority over women she erased." Ilva whispered, "Majesty." "No." Brenric looked at the great sheet. Household service records, wash tallies, scent traces, and oath wash returns will stand as legal testimony in pack law from this night forward. A sound moved through the women in the chamber. Not applause. Breath. Sorrel felt it pass through her like warmth after years of winter water. Brenric removed the ring of house authority from his hand and placed it on the whetstone before Nyeva. "The Luna ceremony is suspended. No border mate, oath will be sealed on stolen cloth. Lady Kalira Thorn remains under royal protection, but no inheritance claim will be raised over Nyeva Thorn until witness is complete." Kalira bowed her head and wept. Nyeva closed her eyes. Ilva stared at the ring as if it had betrayed her more than any person could. "You would ruin your house for washroom ghosts?" Sorrel answered, "No. For women you failed to make ghosts." The return sheet moved. It wrapped Ilva's hands again. This time it did not merely wet them. It pulled every hidden stain she had ordered away from other women and returned it to her sleeves. Rose oil, copied seal powder, fever salt, oath, blood, washwater from bedding removed before morning. Ilva did not scream. She looked down at herself as if filth had finally learned her name. Lady Morwen turned to the guards. "Take her above. She will stand before every family named here." The guards obeyed. When they were gone, Brenric looked at Sorrel across the hidden room. "I cannot replace what I crushed," he said. "No," Sorrel said. "I can restore the oath. You can submit to it." He accepted the correction. "Then I submit." That mattered. Not enough to heal everything. Enough to begin without lying. Sorrel returned to the Lower Pack Washhouse with Naiva's sleeve strip in one hand and the broken remains of the moon laundry stones in the other. The white sheets that had risen in accusation now lowered themselves one by one into clean rainwater. Not spotless. True. At the main basin, Nessa Gray placed a new wash tally before her. Sorrel wrote the first line herself. Naiva Thorne, living claimant, returned before witness. Then, Eloan Hart. Then every woman the house had tried to rinse away. Brenric stood behind her, crownless, silent, and visible to everyone in the lower room. He did not touch her. He did not claim her. He let the washhouse see him waiting behind the woman whose hands he had once treated as dirty. Sorrel dipped the broken stone fragments into moon water. The water turned clear, and for the first time in the royal house, clean did not mean erased.